Hi, everybody. This is Daniel Gray, and I am the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live from Delta, Colorado on Blog Talk Radio. This is Local Friday, where we look into issues that are going on primarily in the Gunnison County, but we talk about other small towns and cities too. But we call this Friday program Local Friday. And I actually like to call it Loco, as in crazy, and local as in regional. And again, I want to repeat, all politics is loco. And I think where I want to start is I do have another posting here from the Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem Begin. What am I talking about? Benjamin Netanyahu. He actually has a recent posting here, and I'm going to keep up on this. One thing we're going to do here at the Trailer Park Prophet is try and look out for people that are lovers of liberty. And one of those countries is Israel. We back Israel here at the Trailer Park Prophet. And I've said several times right now, we're making history in the world, and I speak of what's going on in Israel and most importantly what's going on in Iran. And this is really a pivotal time in the history of our world. We're on the precipice, as some wordy authors would write. I mean, we're at a point in time where we haven't been in the history of mankind. Never before have we been in this situation where one country who has openly said they want to put a nuclear bomb on their country, Israel, and we've never been in this position before, where a country like Iran is saying, look, we're building a nuclear bomb, or we're building a nuclear bomb because we want to wipe Israel off the map. I can't think of a time where that's been the case. There may be that tendency, like during the Ottoman Empire or Roman Empire, where the goal of the marching armies was to control as much of the planet as they could. I think that's just a little bit different than what Iran has been suggesting over the last 20 years, and that is to literally wipe Israel off the map. And in fact, if you go to Palestine and you buy a map, like a tourist map, the tourist map will not even include Israel. And there's other official maps like are in the Palestinian schools, where the actual history book in Palestinian girls' schools doesn't have Israel on their map, in their textbook. That's how deeply the Palestinians hate Israel. And that's only half of the hate that Iran has for Israel. But here's another message from Benjamin Netanyahu. This was posted like 21 hours ago. He says, I'm not impressed with the reports that we hear that Iran has not expanded its nuclear facilities. And the reason for that is that they don't need to. They've got enough facilities, enough centrifuges to develop and to complete the fissile material which is at the core of the atomic bomb. They have that. And the test today is not whether they can add to that capacity they already have. The question is, will the international community roll back what they have? We're going to achieve that with pressure, sustained pressure of sanctions. But the people say, quote, if we don't strike this bad deal with Iran, Iran will walk away from the deal. Well, I have news for you. They're going to walk away from this deal. It's a dream deal for them. But I guarantee you one thing, Israel will not allow Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Period. And we talked about last week how the 5+1 committee got together with Iran and discussed their nuclear program, and they weren't able to come to an agreement. They did actually have an agreement, and luckily it was vetoed by France. And now we're in interim period here in the negotiations, and they plan on getting together. The 5+1 plans on getting together, I believe it's next week, to try and work out an arrangement with Iran. And by all accounts, Iran is not negotiating in good faith. What they want is time. Time is on their side. And the longer their scientists have in Iran to develop whatever component parts they're lacking to build a bomb, time is on their hands. This is the same kind of situation that we have in Afghanistan. The Taliban and Al-Qaeda say, well, the Americans have the watches and we have the time. And it's the same case here with Iran. And we're just getting dangerously close to a confrontation of one sort or another. And I don't know really what else to say. I'm worried that we have a foreign policy team under John Kerry that isn't up to the task. I talked about how John Kerry said, well, we're not stupid or blind. And I don't know why anyone would say something like that. Anyone who is a so-called statesman, diplomat, intellectual, a person that's been in the U.S. Senate now for going on like 20 years or something. I mean, John Kerry ought to be a really sophisticated person, but it's like when he says stuff like this, that we're not stupid and we're not blind, somehow we're dealing with someone who really very sophisticated. Because by those remarks, it kind of demonstrates that John Kerry's not that sophisticated. The Secretary of State is not that sophisticated. I'm really worried about that one comment, that this guy would strike out. Remember, this was after he made a emergency guest, what do you call it, a featured appearance at these talks in Geneva. He came out of nowhere to show up because things were falling apart, and then that's when he actually had to say that remark, that we're neither stupid or blind. I don't know, it's just scary in my mind. All right, let's see what else I have here today. I got notes. I was going to try and see what else I had going today before I went into that stuff. Oh, here's another brilliant observation by Thomas Sowell, one of my all-time favorites. He says, the key to fallacy of so-called gun control laws is that such laws do not, in fact, control guns. They simply disarm the law-abiding citizens while people bent on violence find firearms readily available. Thomas Sowell. I mean, that's so clear. And it's so true. It's so true, but I'm not going to deal and get involved with that today. Let's see what else. Iran is getting everything and giving nothing. Another story on that. Maybe I should go to my notes. I'm trying to think, what is the big story today? Everyone's talking about President Obama's speech yesterday. President Obama came out yesterday and tried to get ahead of the imploding of Obamacare, and he gave a press conference yesterday in the White House press room. Actually stood before the podium and tried to explain to the American people what's going on with Obamacare. And it was a bit of a mea culpa, meaning he apologized for what happened with the people that had the private insurance losing their insurance, and he was talking about how he felt their pain, and he went on to say that, this is President Obama, said that, remember during the campaign he said he wasn't a perfect man and he's not going to be a perfect president, and he talked about his team for once in his whole presidential tenure, he started talking about his team. He's been using the plural instead of I and me all the time. But he basically was trying to explain to the American people that he feels their pain, but in essence, it's nothing compared to the pain that he feels. That was kind of what I thought was the feeling behind the press conference yesterday. The president, he's a victim in all of this. That's how he comes across. And he gave this press conference. It was an hour long, and I tried to watch the whole thing. I wanted to watch the whole thing, but he was 45 minutes late. And ironically, I'm on my Facebook page, and I said to all my friends, I say, you watch, President Obama's going to be late to his press conference like he always is, and I bet you he's going to be 45 minutes late. And he actually was 45 minutes late. I mean, I actually nailed it. I was really impressed with myself. I gave myself a big old attaboy. But the press is really talking about speech. They kind of think President Obama was rambling and fumbling and bumbling, and I'm not just talking. In fact, Fox was really nice about their reporting on the Obama press conference. Yes, it's more of the lamestream media that said President Obama was rambling and fumbling, bumbling, and they felt like they've never seen the president actually be just, of this demeanor. He's not his regular self. He's not his cocky, self-confident self. And a lot of people in the lamestream media are really curious to watch sort of the devolution of President Obama. He doesn't have his swagger. He doesn't have his confidence. And it is different. He's speaking in a lower tone, and his cadence isn't as abrupt. And it's true, President Obama looked like a whole different guy yesterday. He had on his black makeup, so I knew instantly it was a big speech. And I thought it was going to go a lot worse. I thought, this is really a bad deal, because the press conference was called because of the fallout from all these people losing their individual insurance plans. Roughly 5 million plans have been cut or canceled since October 1st, and that's 5 million insurance plans lost to what was announced yesterday, that there were officially 100,000 or so healthcare policies that have been more or less spoken for, but the person hasn't pulled the trigger and actually paid for these plans. The way that it was explained, that there's roughly 100,000 people that put a Obamacare exchange plan in their shopping cart, but they haven't paid for it yet. So the Democrats, like we announced, have been running scared. And there was an emergency meeting yesterday in the White House. I can't even keep track how many emergency meetings there is at the White House, but it was all on the hush-hush and everything. And they basically were demanding President Obama come up with some sort of a fix to the situation with people losing their health care because of Obamacare. And Obama came up with the fix. And it was something that Nancy Pelosi was supporting, because it's an administrative fix. And basically what the president decided to do is to go ahead and extend or delay the law that says that people have to get a health care plan from Obama, and it has to meet all the Obama mandates, like maternity services for men, that kind of thing. But it's more of a administrative waiver of that portion of the law that says that every individual has to get themselves a policy. And some people are crying foul. They're saying, well, the president doesn't really have that authority. And the administration fired back, well, it isn't that we're changing the law. All we're doing is deciding that we're not going to enforce certain aspects of the Obamacare law. And now people, according to the president, can go ahead and get back on these old programs or these old policies, and they'll be able to stay on those policies for one more year. Just one more year. All those policies that canceled October 1st and all the policies that are going to cancel in January now can be extended for another full year, if the insurance companies want to, and if the insurance companies also have to get the approval of the individual state insurance departments. So it's going to be a tough thing to do, and they have to do it in 30 days. And the insurance companies now have an option of whether or not they want to put into force and effect these policies again. But the ironic thing is that the policies that they'd be offering or they'd be extending would actually be illegal and in violation of the Obamacare laws. So the insurance agencies would be literally offering policies that are against the law. And it creates kind of a quagmire and sort of a statutory crisis. Because if an insurance agent offers a policy that is against Obamacare law, then it's like the insurance agent is kind of an outlaw. And the person who actually gets the policy is kind of, well, I mean, they're kind of, well, they're buying an illegal policy, basically. And I don't mean to nuance it too much, but it's really curious the position the Obama administration and the whole of the government it is. Because the insurance companies now are going to have to decide to put together policies that are basically against the law, and I guess if the people that took these policies actually got them, and let's say there was some kind of a dispute, maybe there was some kind of malpractice involved, then the doctors or the healthcare providers could say, well, look, how can you sue us when you're here, or your client's here, the person's, the policyholder's here with an illegal policy? And then the policyholder would say, well, I know it's illegal on the law books, but there was this provision was waived by the president. And so it's a calamity. It's a mess. We used to call these things cluster, you know what, FUCKs. It truly is a classic example of one of those. It's an abomination. It's a total mess. And I don't see this helping one iota. This is not going to help the president one iota. Because it does kind of, it may get him through the 2014 elections, but I don't even think that's going to be the case either. I think what you're going to see is a lot of these business plans that people give to their employees. They see the handwriting on the wall. They see all the turmoil in Washington, and they see these people with these individual policies and these insurance agencies with these individual policies. And I think people, or business people, are going to start dumping their insurance, and that's going to be the story over 2014, because the business mandate that President Obama waived goes until 2015. And so that's going to be an issue during the 2016 election cycle for president. So the way I see all this, it's a disaster. It's it's like a timed implosion. And what President Obama did yesterday was very much a political move, and it changed the dynamics in Congress, but it only delays the inevitable. And the worst part anyway is the employer mandate, because the employer mandate, we estimate, is roughly 120 million policies. So once the employer mandate kicks in and employers start dropping their coverage for employees, that's when things are going to get nutso. They're going to be turbo crazy. They're going to be amplified by a factor of, let's see, that would be almost factor of 10 or 15, maybe more. Once the employers start dropping their employee policy, man, oh man, I mean, there's going to be a what do you want to call it? What's the word? It's like throwing a big boulder in water, man. All those waves are just going to come rushing over Washington, D.C., and the newspapers, and all the political actors are going to be getting an earful about losing their insurance policy. And I think it's going to be really ugly. And as I look into my plastic crystal ball, I can see the Republicans taking back the House in 2014, and I don't see how the Republicans don't take back the U.S. Senate in 2014. And then during the election cycle for president in 2015 and 2016, I see the majority of the effects of Obamacare just basically imploding during the election cycle for president in 2016. That's what I'm envisioning. And then that would guarantee that we get a Republican in the office. And I think we could run any Republican and beat any Democrat in 2016. I really have that feeling. That's my premonition. That's my gut feeling. Okay, let's see, what else did I want to say about that press conference? I should watch that again, because there's a lot of stuff packed into that press conference. And just from the psychological standpoint of who President Obama is and where he is in this place in history, that press conference yesterday was amazing. And I guess that's enough said about it. Well, we'll talk a little more about it, but because I'm telling you, this press conference yesterday by the president was probably in the top 5 press conferences for President Obama. I mean, he talked about fumbling the football. Can you imagine that? I was really surprised to use that metaphor, fumbling a football. He said it twice. He said, my team's fumbled the football a couple times. And I tried to put myself in the place of somebody who was mentioned in the news that lost their health insurance, and now they can't get cancer treatment. And here's the President of the United States talking about how he fumbled the football. And then some people said, and I guess this makes sense, that the press conference yesterday was for the low information voters out there, the people who are part of Barack's board, the Barack Obama board. They needed to hear from the president that everything's okay with health care, despite what they're hearing from NPR and other liberal sources, the lamestream media. But they were saying that they felt like this speech was directed, basically, I guess you would say, at the base, at the Borg, the Barack Borg. And immense, really. I guess, I listened to it, and President Obama has an effect on me. And he was really serious yesterday. He had his black makeup on, and he droned on and on and on. That's President Obama's best defense. It is to filibuster or do a long squee, because no one feels comfortable interrupting the president. And he was 45 minutes late. I needed to go take Bailey for a bark. She was outside crying, and I just had a really difficult time listening to the president. And that is because sometimes when you listen to politicians, like I did for 16 years at the Colorado State Senate, you just kind of disconnect. My organic computer just went on static. I mean, President Obama drones on and on and on and on. It's really almost impossible sometimes to focus on him and listen to every word he says. And in the future, I'm going to just sit down when the president's speaking with the pad and paper and listen intently. But this time I listened to him yesterday. He kept droning on and on and on, and he wasn't saying anything. It was all like benign horse pucky. And he was just killing time, running out the clock. It's just kind of weird to say or to see. Okay, moving on. The Philippines, that's the big story in the world, of course. And the amount of people that have been killed has been revised down. We reported on the Trailer Park Profit Show that some 10,000 people reportedly were killed in the Philippines. We now know that number is 300. That's the estimate right now. They had a big burial, a big mass grave yesterday. The bodies, they've been there now for over a week, so they're getting pretty stinky. So they had to do a mass grave yesterday. The Filipinos are starting to get food and water, primarily from the U.S. In fact, the USS George Washington is there in the Philippines, and they're offloading vast amounts of food and water and shelter. And it's a really bad situation in the Philippines. And if you've seen the pictures, the aerial pictures of the devastation, the areas are just flattened. The neighborhoods and their houses are just flattened. It looks, it looks like a big, huge bomb just leveled everything. And the people are still looking for their loved ones, and it's really a tragedy. But thank God the U.S. is there, and things, I would say, are starting to get better in the Philippines. And what can we do? We can only best. I mean, it's a horrible thing. If you have any money at all, you can give it to the Red Cross or any number of relief agencies that are out there that you're sure that your money goes to the people that are affected. But you might really consider doing that, because what they need more than anything is money. And the U.S. government, or the U.S. military, get a load of this. I got some good news today. You know, I really worry that I'm too much of a downer. And I think about these things, and I contemplate in my mind what I think might happen, or what are the consequences of one thing happening over another. But I don't want everybody just being all upset. And so I have some good news. And one of the things I have today is a report that the oil production in the United States is at a record high. For the first time in years and years and years, we now, something like, one thing, we import less foreign oil than we ever have. And we're exporting more petroleum products than we ever have. So that was some good news. I'm trying to think whatever economic news I have. Oh, home sales and home values are up from last year, August 30th of last year. That's good news. The unemployment rate is about the same, but the the number of people who are first-time filers for unemployment, that number's not very good. That's not a really good number. It was 370,000 people were first-time unemployment applicants, and that was 9,000 more than the Department of Labor had predicted. Turkey wants an extension of an agreement that they made with the USA. You might remember Turkey was concerned that some of the civil war in Syria would spill over into their country, and so USA put Patriot missiles in Turkey to take down any missiles that happen to fly in Syria, or if there were some helicopter gunships or something. But now Turkey's after an extension of service by the USA, and they want to keep the American Patriot missiles in Turkey, and that means that we'd have to keep our personnel there too. I'm not sure really what that means. I guess the takeaway is that the Syrian civil war is still a danger to Turkey and Turkey's other neighbors. So that's not necessarily a good thing. Let's see here. The Fox has been doing a bunch of polls, and they are capable of doing scientific polls. But one of the polls that they did, they went out and said, well, do you believe that Obama was honest about the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare? And 53% said that the president wasn't honest, and 33% said the president was honest. So that's almost 2-to-1. That's a bad sign for the president. And thank God for Fox that they'll actually ask these kind of questions, because this is what you want to know, particularly after you can keep your health care insurance, period, and you can keep your doctor, period. People out there now are going to have to ask themselves, well, was the president actually lying? And there's some other polls here. I don't know if I have those numbers, but Fox has been doing polls like that, like did the president actually know? And the polls are generally showing that, yes, that President Obama did know that his promises about health care insurance and Obamacare were a lie. He knew he was lying. And, oh yeah, another thing from that press conference yesterday that was sort of a headline, and that was one of the reporters asked him, how come he went ahead and rolled out the Obamacare website when we know now from internals that staff that were involved with the rollout of Obamacare said it wasn't ready for prime time? And someone asked him yesterday, I think it was Major Garrett, asked him, he said, well, Mr. President, why did you go ahead with the rollout when people within the administration in the know were actually saying that the rollout of the website wasn't ready? And President Obama had what I thought was a curious response. He said, well, Major, if I would have known that the website wasn't ready to be rolled out, I'd be really stupid fool to go ahead and let the website be rolled out. And Obama went on to say that he didn't know that the website was screwed up until 7 days after its rollout started on October 1. But his answer to this reporter, I thought, was rather astonishing. Maybe the word I should say, astonishing. I mean, the president will have you believe that he had no idea the website was not ready to go. He found out just like everybody else, just like you and me. And had the president known that the website wasn't ready to roll out, he would have said, let's delay it. That's what he said. I mean, how stupid do you think the president is? If he would have known that the Obamacare website was was not ready, he would have decided to postpone it. He didn't know. The president had no idea that the website wasn't ready for prime time. I mean, and he was out there on the 1st of October all the way to about the 7th of October, still taunting or still promoting Obamacare. Remember, he was out there like the sham wow guy saying, hey, sign up, it's great, it's wonderful. But he'll have us believe, the president wants us to believe that he was so removed from the loop of his signature legislation that he didn't know the website was screwed up. This $700 million website was screwed up. He didn't know. Had no idea. I mean, if he would have known, he would have postponed its rollout. He would have done that for everybody and saved us all this trauma and torment. He doesn't know anything, this president. Okay, let's see. Yeah, another Fox poll. They just straight up out asked people if they thought Obamacare or Obama lied about Obamacare or not. And 50% of the people polled said yes, the president did lie, and 40% said he didn't. So 40% of the people out there are willing to give President Obama a pass, that he didn't really know what he was saying when he said people could keep their insurance if they want to, period, and they could keep their doctor if they wanted to, period. And don't forget the other one. Obama promised that everybody would see a $2,500 decrease in their insurance premium. Don't forget that one either. But 40% of the people out there think that for some reason the president, he just misspoke. He wasn't lying. He just didn't know. Okay, let's see. Incorrect promise. Yeah, the New York Times calls President Obama's, you can keep your policy and your doctor and get $2,500 off your premium, your insurance premium. The New York Times calls that an incorrect promise. Not a promise broken, not a misrepresentation, not a lie. It's an incorrect promise. That's what it is. Oh, and this is kind of startling too. This is what it's got the Obama administration, all those eggheads over there in the West Wing. This just has them squirming like toads on hot skillets. And this poll here says that if you voted today, would you vote Republican or Dem? And they always do this poll because it gives you kind of a, I don't know, it's a snapshot of how people feel at a certain time. That's all polls really are. But they do give you a real true indication of the American psyche. So that's why they're so interesting. And that's why the president and the Democratic Party and the Republicans are always doing their internal polls. And they're always doing their focus groups. But this one here is, if you voted today, would you vote Republican or Democrat? And the poll now shows that 43% would vote Republican and 40% would vote for Democrat. But last month, it was almost reversed. It was, who would you vote for if you had to vote today, Democrat or Republican? And people said that they would vote 37% Republican. This was in October, and they would vote 45% for the Democrats. Now that's in October. So within the period of a month, those figures, those statistics, percentage flipped, and now 43% say they vote Republican. So, you know, it's just kind of a fun indication. You know what I mean? All right, let's see. We talked about the closed-door meeting with the president and Dem leaders. We really haven't heard what came out of there, at least not of yet. But they basically told the president that he had to come up with a fix and that's what he did. He came up with that fix yesterday, but we don't really know how that meeting came out. But the big deal is that we talked about the bill in the House that was the same fix or a similar fix like President Obama proposed to do administratively yesterday. Well, that bill passed the House of Representatives, and that would say that the insurance companies can offer those individual insurance plans for another year. And now it's going to move on to the Senate, and we'll have to see what happens. Or if this whole situation sort of calms down and the dust settles, then we won't probably see any action on the House bill. And we probably won't see any action from the Senate, the Mary Landau bill. We're kind of in a lull right now. Everyone has to kind of set exactly how Obama's proposal yesterday actually translates into actual more changes in the insurance agencies. And probably the bigger question is whether or not things kind of cool down in the individual insurance market. If more people keep losing their insurance, then this is going to have to be revisited. But if it looks like the Obama administrative fix is going to take hold and take down all of these, what we used to call in politics, baby fires out there, all these anecdotal stories, people losing their insurance, well, maybe this will be okay for President Obama. We'll have to see. I mean, that's why I find this whole situation, it's just, it's interesting. You know, it's really fascinating watching all the machinations and all the players and everything. It's interesting. I like it. This is an interesting story. It's from, what is it, Gonzaga. No, wait, how do they say that again? Gonzaga. Gonzaga University, something like that. At any rate, it's a pretty interesting story. These kids were going to this university, and two boys, roommates, they rented a university facility. The university had been renting this facility. It was obviously an apartment complex, and then written out to these Gonzaga University kids. Well, these two guys were living in this apartment complex. They were seniors, and this guy breaks into their apartment late at night. And one of these kids had a gun. He pulled it on this guy and stopped him from terrorizing these two kids in their apartment. And they called the police, and the police came and arrested this guy. This guy had a rap sheet. He had something like 6 other felonies. And these kids saved themselves. Well, the university decided that this was inappropriate, that these kids actually had guns on school property, even though it's not really their property. The college just has a 99-year lease on this property. But at any rate, they expelled these kids, and now they're in the process of reprimanding these two kids because they're claiming that Gonzaga University has a no guns policy. And these kids were licensed to have these, well, I keep saying kids, these are young men, they're 22, 23 years old. These young men had permits to have these guns. So this is going to be an interesting battle. And the reason being is it's a classic with the liberal university against basic rights of Americans, our Bill of Rights, right to bear arms. So it kind of has the makings of a classic showdown, if you know what I mean. And I know you do. Okay, top that. Oh, and the other thing Obama was talking about, he was trying to say, look, you know, the website, it's got some problems, but we're working on it. It's getting better. And, oh, the other thing he said, too, yesterday, he said, don't expect the website to be 100%, as we promised on November 30th. Sorry, Charlie. You may have spent more money than anyone would have spent in the private sector, but don't think it's going to be operational, like we said. I bet you President Obama... wouldn't it be cool to be a fly on the wall in the White House to be able to see really what's going on behind the scenes? And eventually it's all going to come out. Like I said, this administration is going to have the best books of any administration. Once people get out there, outside the walls of the White House, and President Obama finally is no longer the President of the United States, I guarantee you, these books out of this White House are going to be barn burners. All right. Oh, I know what I want to talk about. I was thinking about this the other day, and I meant to mention it earlier on in the week, but I think Obamacare is going to kill sports. We already know, I mean, I don't know how many stories I could do about various colleges that are having to cut their employees to part-time and cut their employee insurance, but I'm certain that this is going to have some kind of an effect on sports. Because you know, these sports teams, these high school teams, these college teams, they have to have an insurance component. And I'm not really sure exactly how it works. I've interviewed a few kids, and they told me that if you played college ball at Western State College, your parents had to have you on an insurance plan. All right? Or I think some of these colleges actually have their own plans. Or they might be self-insured. I bet you some of these colleges are self-insured, which Obamacare, if you remember from Wednesday, doesn't affect self-insurance. But I just have this feeling in the ensuing year and a half, 2 years before the presidential election, that we're going to start hearing various athletic departments having to either get more money from the students or ask the administrations for more money to pay for their insurance costs. Because I have a feeling that sports in America have kind of been taking a free ride on the health insurance community or the health insurance industry. And my suspicion, I mean, I'm looking right now into my plastic crystal ball, and I can see some athletic directors right now rubbing hands over the insurance numbers, the liability numbers for their various sport teams. And I just have this sneaking suspicion. Oh, speaking of sneaking suspicion, President Obama actually did mention, I wonder if I have this in my notes, in his speech yesterday, that there is a likelihood that these people lost their individual insurance policies. In order for them to be made whole again, that they're going to have to be paying premiums that are higher than what they would have normally had to pay. And he actually mentioned that there will be some monetary compensation, or to put it in regular street language, subsidies that these individuals are gonna receive, and they're gonna do it out of a account that was used to also buy the insurance for the members of Congress and the Senate and all their staffs. They're going to use, God, what was the name of it? At any rate, there's going to be subsidies if you lost your insurance because of Obamacare. You can be subsidized now, and let's see, I can't find what exactly that. Anyways, I'm sure you could Google it and find it. It's the same federal department that is going to pay for the health insurance for Congress and their employees. So you can easily find that on your own. All right, let's see what else I got here. What time I got? Got 10 minutes to the break. Obamacare regime hates it. Let's see. In case you don't know, Obamacare has created 444,000 new Medicaid recipients. Let's see. 1 in 100 Obamacare versus private. Okay, I don't think I should get into that. Insurance, we talked about that already. On Wednesday, I better not get into that. It's tough sometimes. I don't want to get like too into the weeds, but we got to go into the weeds a certain distance. And the reason being is it's important that we understand how decisions are made and how they affect politicians and citizens. So I know sometimes you guys don't like going into the weeds, but we have to do it sometimes. And this is that the office I was talking about that you can get your Obama subsidies are going to come from the Office of Personnel Management. So you might want to make a note. If you know anybody that recently lost their insurance policy because of Obamacare, you might want to write down and tell them that the Office of Personnel Management now, by executive decree, according to President Obama yesterday in his press conference in the press room of the White House, that the Office of Personnel Management will be issuing subsidies for people who find that their policy that got canceled, if it gets reinstated and it costs more, they can now get a subsidy. Let's see. Okay, I talked about that. Oh, this, I'll tell you, I heard about this from Rush Limbaugh. I was on my walk with Bailey Barker, and we talked about this guy, I think it was Monday. Jonathan Gruber, remember the guy who was the economist from MIT and who got $450,000, $450,000. Oh my God, to be a consultant to put together Obamacare beginning, he got paid $450,000. But he was saying on MSNBC yesterday that the way that Obama put together this website and this latest revelation of Obama kind of waiving the mandate or allowing these people to keep these subpar plans, as the president likes to say. And this guy, John Gruber, he's an economist, he says that it's going to ruin the whole Obamacare numbers. It's going to ruin the actuarial numbers. And he was just stating the obvious, that in order for Obamacare to work, you've got to get those young people, the millennials I've been talking about, the 19 to 35, the people who think they're invincible, the people that normally would not be getting health insurance. You've got to get these people in order for the actuarial tables to actually work. And it looks like that the millennials are running away from Obamacare like scalded dogs. So the next revelation that this Jonathan Gruber that if the president thinks that he can waive all of these individuals from not having to pay the full mandated Obamacare coverage, that money that Obamacare needs that money, and that's what this guy was saying. But it was interesting. Rush Limbaugh, he kind of went off the rails because this guy Jonathan Gruber said that health insurance is like a genetic lottery, and that if you're one of those healthy people who doesn't get sick or doesn't during your lifetime doesn't have some debilitating type injury or sickness, that you won the genetic lottery. And it's important that if you won that genetic lottery, that you pay your fair share so that other people who aren't so genetically endowed can get the necessary health coverage that they need. And it really is nothing more than looking at actuarial tables, and that's exactly what insurance companies do. They try to assess the risk, because an insurance company or any company has to be risk averse. And so the notion of a genetic lottery has really been based for years in our insurance system, in the insurance industry of the United States. But for some reason today, this comment by Jonathan Gruber just set Rush Limbaugh off. I mean, he felt like it was de facto eugenics. And eugenics, in case you don't know, would apply in this instant, and it was implemented actually in Germany. Eugenics is a way that government can try to limit its risk and basically do away with people who are sick and maybe deformed or retarded. Those people can be eliminated. That's kind of eugenics. And eugenics also would suggest that if you were to encourage a certain genetic pool to reproduce and not encourage another genetic pool to produce, then you can manage some of your societal expenses. I mean, that's kind of eugenics in a thumbnail explanation. But it was interesting. Rush Limbaugh, he got locked in on this Jonathan Gruber from MIT, and he couldn't let it go. I finally had to turn him off. He was yelling and carrying on. It was more than I could really handle. But I just think he went off the edge a little bit. And I understand, eugenics is, eugenics actually inspires that kind of emotion. This is exactly what Margaret Sanger talked about, eugenics, who started Planned Parenthood, who said that blacks were the weeds of society. That's eugenics. And not President Obama, but Rush Limbaugh was kind of taking it a step further than I think this guy Jonathan Gruber really wanted to, have this subject advanced. Except that you have to understand that just even talking in this manner, like Jonathan Gruber did, does kind of make it a legit topic for discussion, and I understand that. And eventually, maybe it will become a bigger issue. I mean, that's the whole worry about socialized medicine is eventually when there's so much bureaucracy that's sucking up all the healthcare dollars and less actual providers like doctors and nurses, then eventually the board that controls Obamacare will have to do something to cut costs. And invariably what will happen is the Specialist Board of Health eventually will have to cut services. And it does, quite frankly, come down to, should we put a new hip in a 65-year-old or should we, do a kidney transplant for a guy or woman who's only 30 years old? I mean, these are the kind of decisions that are going to have to be made in the future, when the availability, the supply of healthcare is than the demand. And I think what Rush is worried about, that those decisions could be made on the basis of genetics, which in turn would be the fear of Rush Limbaugh and many people that that Obamacare eventually would force us to practice eugenics. And I guess I've come at this same conclusion, but I kind of came at it a different way than Rush. And I think that it is a real concern, and that there's plenty of information from other socialized medicine systems that eventually somewhere there is a death panel. And Sarah Palin got made fun of for suggesting that Obamacare would have a death panel, but I can assure you of this. If Obamacare eventually becomes fully implemented, there's going to be a death panel. I promise you, because that's been the experience in Europe and in Canada. And you might say, well, it's not really a death panel, and it isn't, but if you're denied service, how do they say it about justice? Justice denied is, oh wait, how do they put it? Oh no, justice postponed, justice denied. Well, that thing is going to apply to government health care. Healthcare denied is not healthcare. Just saying. All right, let's see here. I have my little notes. I always carry a piece of paper. Maybe you can see it there in the camera. And when I'm out there walking with my best friend Bailey Barker, and I might be listening to Rush Limbaugh or whoever is on the radio talking about politics, I'll listen to almost anybody. I always, have a little pen and paper and write down some of my thoughts. And sometimes I'm out there thinking and I have a thought and I write it down, and I just wanted you to know that. I want you to be closer to the Trailer Park Prophet, who broadcasts 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. And right now I'm live from Delta, Colorado. Again, the Friday show is Local Friday. Oh, I actually do have some Local Friday stuff. I wonder if you should go to that. All right. Yeah, maybe I should. There's not much here, though. I was really kind of surprised. The Gunnison Country Times, I don't know. They're just not themselves anymore. What was in the paper? Let's see. We've got a guest commentary. And here again, here's another example of HICA, High Country Citizens Alliance. Again, there are environmental groups all across the United States. I bet you have these same groups in your community, and they're funded from out-of-state sources. And this article is a Times opinion, and here again, the Gunnison Country Times sometimes puts in these Times opinion, but they don't put a name or an author, and it bugs. But it says on the surface the idea sounds ludicrous, that it's doing away with Mount Emmons water treatment plant. It's not surprising then that there was a sniff and uproar locally following the recent recognition that the U.S. Energy Department, the owner of the water treatment plant at Mount Evans, had received approval from the state for a voluntary cleanup that seeks to do away with the facility altogether, contrary to local opposition. But the basic crust of this article is the recent brouhaha, led in large part by the High Country Citizens Alliance, suggests that many community members would rather continue to fight than consider a common ground solution. And basically that is what HICA is doing here. They are impeding any development of mineral development anyway because this is their whole purpose in life. The High Country Citizens Alliance, if they're not fighting mining companies, they don't have a reason to be. And this HICA, this High Country Citizens Alliance in Crested Butte, is holding up this mining company, and they're basically just doing it because they can. And Gunnison is in desperate need of tax revenue from mineral development, and Gunnison is in desperate need of these high-paying mining jobs. And all that HICA does is fight. It says here, we don't understand why HICA wouldn't openly welcome this WCUP plan, which has been reviewed thoroughly and approved by the highest authority in the state. And here there's another article here where the school district is wringing their hands that the school system in Gunnison doesn't have enough money to operate their schools. And why, in part, is because the progressive socialists are fighting mineral development in the county. All right. Let me see if I have this. Oh, November 27th, it looks like Crested Butte Mountain Resort will open for the 2013-2014 season on November 27th. As the tradition goes, the resort will do so in style with free skiing and riding for all and a costume celebration to kick off the first chair. So if you're not doing anything, folks, you might want to head on up to Crested. Fun place, nice hill, pretty decent people. Here's the article here. And this is written by Chris Rourke. School Board ponders funding future in the aftermath of Amendment 66 that we've been talking about. Local school officials are looking for ways to fix financial dilemma that has left Gunnison Watershed RE1J School District short of funds. A discussion regarding the impact of the amendment's defeat was initiated by Superintendent Doug Treadway during the RE1J School Board meeting in Crested Butte on Monday. For the last several years, the school district has seen a $2 million shortfall and from what it should. The current state formula, the intent of Amendment 66 has no change on the way schools were funded by implementing a two-tiered state income tax and dedicating 43% of the state's budget to education. Had it passed, Amendment 66 would have added nearly $1 billion. Okay, on and on and on. But see, here it is. This is how people in government think. They never give up. They took a real butt-kicking in this last election, and they're undaunted. They are undaunted. They are going to do whatever they can to somehow try and hurt the people and or the students. It says we will not be able to continue to do business as usual. Treadway told the board this year we borrowed $400,000 to make this budget. We thought down the road we would have this fixed, that the state would be able to kick in. We're going to have to learn to live with $2 million less a year, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like. And again, the school budget in Gunnison is relatively small. It's $60 billion a year. $60 million a year, excuse me, million. And of that $65 million goes to retire debt. $5 million a year for debt service in little bitty Gunnison, Colorado. Let's see here. What else? I don't know that I have much more from Local Friday in Gunnison. I really didn't. Oh, this is kind of a story. Gunnison has an airport, the Crested Butte Gunnison Airport, and the environmentalists were making a big stink about the airport using de-icing agents because it might get into the groundwater, and there was such a big hoopla and whatnot that the airport wasn't able to get the necessary approval to be able to use these de-icing agents, and it turned right in the middle of the holiday season that a lot of planes weren't allowed to come to Gunnison that were going to be carrying tourists, one of our most important economic legs of our economic stool, that these plane loads of tourists with their pockets filled with money couldn't land in Gunnison because of the environmentalists restricting the use of these de-icings. Well, now all that's all fixed up now. The airport's going to be able to use de-icing, and we won't be out. I think it was something like $5 million that the area ran. The area, we didn't get $5 million. I think that's what they were saying, that the economy didn't get, lost in sales. Here's another wind project. This is the Gunnison, what is this? Gunnison County Electric Association project may take wind out of the local. Here's another example of a wind turbine that was installed in Gunnison, and it's not. In fact, they kid around in this article that this windmill only produces enough energy for a toaster. And I've never seen this thing. It's a big, tall one. I've never seen this one tall, which is kind of funny. I don't know if we have time to get to this story. Maybe we do. Wait, maybe I could find this story. This is a pretty funny story. This story, I'm trying to think, where was this from? This might have been Colorado, or maybe it was California, but it's a report on a solar farm, and the first time I've seen this. I don't know if this isn't out there in other areas, but I've heard about the windmills. The windmills are killing. They're killing birds. And I had this one story, it was like 3 weeks ago, this story about how these wind turbines are killing bald eagles. They killed something like 15 bald eagles in 1 year, this one wind farm. And I guess also the wind farms are killing bats. And bats, as you may well know, eat mosquitoes. And mosquitoes oftentimes kill bad stuff. Oh, wait, before I do this story, this solar panel story, I got to make sure everything's okay at my studio. And by the way, if you want to call in and talk to the Trailer Park Prophet, you can do that. Just dial 646-716-8506. Again, if you would like to talk to the Trailer Park Prophet, Daniel Gray, you can give me a call, 646-716-8506. Oh, I see. All right, this that we're going to talk about. Where is that coming from? All right. Oh, here it is. Oh, maybe. Oh, here, we might have some tape. We can roll this. At any rate, let me do the setup. This story is from Breitbart, written by Warner Todd Huston. And he writes here, he wrote this article. When did this article come out? Anyways, it says some animal rights activists are wondering just how many birds green energy unintentionally kill as more and more birds turn up dead at solar energy facilities throughout California. A recent article by Vince author Lex Burko notes that dead birds are being found with singed wings, S-I-N-G-E-D wings, around several California, singed wings around several California solar energy facilities. It happens that many of the California solar plants are, the article claims, in the path of the 4 major north trajectories for the immigration birds called the Pacific Flyway. Birds are dying in one of 2 ways. In some cases, they imagine the shining solar panels to be bodies of water and dive straight into the solar panels. Oh, that's an ugly visual. There they die when they smash into the panels from the skies. Others feel the wrath of the harassed sunlight, or the harnessed sunlight. The ultra-polished solar mirrors bounce sun rays strong enough to burn the feathers off of birds that quickly crash to the ground, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. Many of the fowl dying as a result of their unfortunate flight paths over solar facilities are birds protected by federal government under Migratory Bird Treaty Act. Eric Davis of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recently told a reporter from the Desert Sun that the feds are waiting for more information about these bird deaths. He writes, "Bird immigration studies have to wait for the bird migrations," Davis said. "It's not like they're going to have the answers in 2 weeks. This is going to be months and years of trying to better understand the problem and then make better management decisions as we gain more scientific understanding. There are also thousands of birds killed by wind turbine farms throughout the country. This means that untold numbers of birds, some of them protected species, are being killed by green energy." Yeah. Unintended consequences. And not only that, but in my mind, these solar farms and wind farms are just patently ugly. They're a scourge on the horizon, as far as I'm concerned. And remember, Senator Ted Kennedy, he was a big green energy kind of guy, and it was supposed that they put some of these wind farms out off of Nantucket by the Kennedy compound, and Kennedy said no way, and he used his connections to nix that idea because he didn't want to see those ugly wind turbines on the ocean anywhere near the Kennedy compound. I mean, they're all for green energy as long as it isn't in their backyard. But here we actually have a news report from Channel 2. I believe this is, Channel 2, CBS Los Angeles. I don't know what this lady's name is, but let's give this a listen. Welcome to the trailer.
Investigate something that has become very divisive. Deep in the Mojave Desert, situated on more than 1.6 million acres, is one of the largest national parks in the United States. Home to bighorn sheep, the desert tortoise, and some of the oldest living vegetation on record. And in a race to create clean, renewable energy, this sacred dry land of peaks and valleys has become the starting line of sorts. Drive north on the 15 to Vegas, and you can't miss the changing landscape as you approach the Nevada border. The Ivanpah Solar Power Project.
It's in the desert. It's deemed to be degraded environment, so environmentally it is less prone to have wildlife than other locations. It's located near some high voltage transmission lines, and it's reasonably close to the freeway, so getting equipment in and out was easier.
Senior Vice President Randall Hickok of Carlsbad NRG Energy
Can you hear that?
part of a group leading what many call a solar power revolution. Joining forces with Oakland-based BrightSource Energy and internet giant Google, Ivanpah, a $2.2 billion project, has taken 3 years to build. Rising from the sand, 3 450-foot towers surrounded by 170,000 heliostat mirrors, creating a desert oasis of clean, renewable energy.
You're using the sun's heat reflected by mirrors to shine on that boiler and generate steam, and from there on out it's just like a regular power plant. Being turned turbine, and turbine turns a generator, and you've got electricity.
When Ivanpah is fully online by the end of 2013, the plant will be able to generate power for 140,000 households servicing Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and even in some cases, Northern California. Energy so clean, it's the equivalent of taking 70,000 cars off the road.
There are no discharges to the lands. It's sunshine making steam, and the plant is water cooled, but it's a closed system. It's like a giant radiator on your car.
I'm standing off the I-15 on the California side of the Nevada-California border, and just behind me is the Ivanpah Solar Power Facility, the world's largest. And while it claims to be environmentally friendly, construction on this project was halted at one time because of environmental concerns. Concern over the threatened desert tortoise, construction stopped in 2011, as 127 of the reptiles needed relocation. David Landrum of the National Parks Conservation Association lives and breathes the heartbeat of the Mojave, keeping a watchful eye on the changing landscape in the desert.
We're supportive in concept of the Ivanpah project. We were not supportive of the location primarily because of the impacts to national parks like.
That's all I can take. Basically, what's going on is you saw this site where they created this farm, this sun farm. I don't know exactly what to call it, but at any rate, it's causing some troubles, and it's ruining the habitat for the desert turtle, and it's right in the path of migratory path for birds, and it's causing a problem. There's no question about it. At any rate, I don't know. I just thought we'd delve into that for a little bit. It was just kind of interesting. And I'm not sure you could hear it, so I thought probably ought to move on. And let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, several people who were survivors of the Benghazi attack in 2012 actually met behind closed doors for the first time with several Congress members. One of the people that was there was Rep. Nunez, and the only revelation that we got out of this interview was a closed-door session, and all of the testimony or the discussion was supposed to be kept quiet. But this guy Nunez, Congressman Nunez, said that one that did get out of these individuals who were survivors from Benghazi is that it was true that the Obama administration did pressure the Benghazi survivors to keep their mouths shut. And we reported that the Obama administration told Benghazi survivors that not only should they keep their mouths shut, but if they don't, there would be repercussions, that these individuals would lose their jobs, and that there's actually been threats on the Benghazi survivors' family. Although we haven't substantiated that. At any rate, at least now, for fundamentally the time, somebody in Congress has actually talked to one of the Benghazi survivors, because the administration has been keeping those people away from the media and away from Congress, which is unprecedented in a free society. But at least now there are some talks, even though they're going on behind closed doors. In fact, it was released too that a lot of these Benghazi survivors, not only are they being by the Obama administration, but there was the other revelation out of this meeting is that the attack in Benghazi on 9/11/2012 was a continual attack. It was portrayed by this administration as an early attack and then a later attack 8 hours later. That now is being disputed by these Benghazi survivors. They're saying that the attack on the consulate and the CIA complex was a full-on, continuous 8 to 9 hour battle. And this is important because the administration has claimed that it was sporadic fighting in the beginning and sporadic fighting 8 hours later. And they use this as an explanation for why they didn't send help. And it's a key deal because in the U.S., in our military, our police force, our firemen, that's kind of a, that's a credo. We don't leave anybody behind. That's not what we do as Americans. We don't leave people behind. And in Benghazi, we did. And the administration has said, well, it's because there was sporadic fighting in the beginning and 8 hours later. Now we're finding out that that's not true. And I had something else on that meeting. I mean, information's kind of leaking out. And one of the other things, it had something to do with within hours, the Benghazi survivors were asked, in fact, at one of the memorial services, that's the deal. At one of the memorial services for the 4 people that died from the attack on the Benghazi consulate, the FBI and the CIA and the State Department actually at the memorial service, and they were going around and asking other survivors of the Benghazi attack to actually sign a disclosure statement of a gag order. And also the various security agencies were asking these Benghazi survivors to actually take a lie detector. So that information was hinted at too, that actually happened. And why this is important is that it adds fuel to the fire that what happened in Benghazi is being covered up. And the reason it's being covered up is for a very serious reason that may involve clandestine military action by the administration or just gross incompetence. We're not really sure. I mean, we talked about, some of the people have suggested that what President Obama was trying to initiate was sort of a false flag activity, and it's been suggested that they wanted the what's his name, Chris, I can't even think of his name right now. God, how soon we forget. Our chief diplomat in Benghazi, they wanted Al-Qaeda to kidnap him so that the U.S. and President Obama could rescue him. Now, I know, having just said that sounds ridiculous, but the other big description or the big suspicion is that there was something on in Libya, and it could have been a exchange for arms for some of Al-Qaeda elements in the Syrian civil war. And I mean, that almost sounds far out too, but something's going on. Otherwise, this mission wouldn't be acting like they are. I mean, they wouldn't have made up the cause of the Benghazi attack as a video, a response to a video. So, I mean, right there, you got to say, well, why did it come up with that narrative? What the hell's going on? I mean, it's impossible not to ask yourself what's going on. Yesterday, where did I see this? This might have been on CNN. They had the governor of California on. His name is Gavin Newsom. And he basically said that Obamacare is a mess. That's his words. Obamacare is a mess. And I was surprised to hear that coming out of California from a Democratic administration. But, the cries for some kind of a change with Obamacare are out there everywhere. In fact, Howard Dean, who is a Democrat, he actually ran for president, and Charles Krauthammer, who is a Republican, say the new Obama fix is illegal. Howard Dean, head of the Democratic Party at one point in time, says that the Obama fix is illegal. I don't know. I'm having a hard time figuring this one out. But what I glean from this, being some sort of a political wonk, is when high officials in your party are coming out against your party's key legislation, that tells you that things are rotten in Denmark. Who was it? Was blaming the drought in Colorado on climate change. I can't even remember who was saying that. That's the new tactic of the left. Anytime we have a storm or a drought or a tornado, it's all going to be blamed on climate change. Yep. Nothing there. Let's see. Oh, the president also said yesterday. God, this really kind of blew my mind. He was talking really matter of fact in this hour-long press conference that even the left said went on too long and that the president was muttering and stumbling. But he said something I thought was interesting. He looked right at the camera and he said, as you all know, the government is not good at IT, information technology. As you all know, they're not good at IT. And I thought, wow, I never knew that. I knew the government generally screws up everything they come involved with. Blame the government generically for his administration's failure, I thought was rather remarkable. Government is not good at IT procurement. Well, if you knew that, why in the hell didn't you have more of an active role, Mr. President, and make sure that this was the exception to the rule? I mean, this is your signature project, Mr. President. I mean, really, what the hell are you thinking? It was just phenomenal. And, and the other thing the president said, this is phenomenal. He said yesterday, insurance is a lot more complicated than we thought it was going into this. He says, insurance is really a complicated business. As if we didn't already know that. But here he is, he's a victim. President Obama is a victim of not only government not being good at IT procurement, but insurance is really complicated and difficult. You know, he's a victim of the industry that he's taken over for the people, but he's a victim because insurance is really complicated. And he said, and I thought, he said, yeah, he goes, you go onto the website, you got to put in all your personal information, you put in all your financial information, and it's complicated. And then you have to see whether or not you're eligible for a C, and it's just complicated. And that's what he kept saying over and over again. And all I could think of myself is it can't be more complicated than filling out your taxes on TurboTax, and that's just merely a program that millions of people use and think is really accurate. In fact, the IRS actually will direct people towards TurboTax, and yet that program works flawlessly. And if it didn't, people would lose their jobs. That's the difference between government and the private sector. And again, Obama, I'm not a perfect man, and I'm not going to be a perfect president. That's classic. Oh, but here's something that was kind of fun. Charles Barkley. I really like Charles Barkley. He's a retired basketball player. For those of you who don't follow sports, I don't, but I like Charles Barkley because he's interesting. He was the round, a rebound. He played for the 76ers, I think it was. And I think they had won a championship, but at any rate, now he's a correspondent, a sports correspondent for ESPN or somebody I don't really know, but he's done this before, but he said yesterday basically that black people need to clean up their own neighborhoods, clean up their own families. And he was saying that the kids need to clean up. They need to pull up their pants and tuck in their shirt tail and go get a job. And of course, you know, that's going to send some people out of their skin. Oh, here's good news. I think I might have mentioned this earlier. There's been a 30% drop in foreclosure since October 30th of 2012. South Dakota Sauls, no time to say the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning. We're going to start hearing more and more excuses from our union-run government big box schools that there's no time to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And my feeling is, if there's no time to say the Pledge of Allegiance, then you don't get any tax dollars. That would be my pledge. I was watching Maury Povich, and I check in with this program once in a while because I think it's kind of a thermometer into what's going on primarily in the minority community. I hate to say that, but it's true. Every time I look at Maury Povich, he had 3, 4, 5 black people on his stage, and they're all animated and yelling and screaming, and they're arguing over did this guy father this kid or not. And God, they use the most foul language, and they attack each other, and they have to have cards, and it's horrible. I can't understand how this guy Maury Povich can even live with himself. I mean, I couldn't do it, but I guess you just have to look at this program and just say that certain elements of our society are devolving. I mean, these people act like idiots, basically, on TV. Speaking of idiots, I wanted to bring this up and I forgot. I found it 3 weeks ago, and it was in my notes, and I overlooked it during the program, but it was really about Kim Kardashian. You know her? She's on, I can't remember, Entertainment Tonight or one of those cable channels, and I stop and I listen. I do this with, you know, a lot of these reality programs, and I can't watch a whole program. But what I can do is kind of stop in and kind of get a snapshot of what's going on, a flavor, an idea, and I'm interested in society, and I see these reality shows as sort of a presentation of some reality in our society, but I find them interesting and worthy of at least visiting. And I was watching Kim Kardashian the other day, and she was talking to her 2 sisters, Chloe and whatever that other one's name is. And I'm almost uncomfortable to say this because it's so vulgar, but I think it's got to be said. Kim Kardashian was talking about how her vagina tasted. That's what they were talking about. The sisters were putting on makeup and doing their hair and sitting in the kitchen talking about how their vaginas tasted. And they were talking about how their men liked their taste, and they were arguing between each other which one of their vaginas tasted better. And it was absolutely disgusting. And if you're listening, Kim Kardashian, or you're a Kim Kardashian fan, I think, Kim Kardashian, you are a degenerate. You're a bit of a filthy animal. They have to put you down there as one of the lowlife of America. I mean, talk about the taste of your vagina, really? People need to know what you think about how your vagina tastes. I mean, it's disgusting. It's filthy. It's inappropriate. It's not civilized. And who wants to know this? I guess that's the question you got to ask yourself. Who are these people? Because they're out there. They're living in our society. We're not in a vacuum here. We rub elbows with the kind of people that watch Maury Povich and listen to Kim Kardashian. They are in our circle of friends and in our workplace. That's just crazy, I think. Let's see. The House of Representatives in Congress is looking to increase sanctions on Iran, which I think is a great idea. I mean, once you have somebody on the map, you don't let up until they scream uncle. And that's what we have right here with the situation with Iran. Obama wants to loosen up those sanctions, thinking that he's going to get something in return. And the other side of the coin is to continue and increase pressures on Iran, economic pressures on Iran, to force them into change. I mean, this is a fundamental aspect of politics that President Obama seems to not be able to comprendo for some reason. Let's see here. Obamacare will need 49,000, actually it says here 49,995 enrollees a day in order to get 7 million enrollees into Obamacare by March 31st, 2014. 50,000 enrollees a day. And to date, they only have 100,000. President Obama is, I'll tell you, he's livid behind the scenes. We reported Wednesday that there's been leaks out of the Obama administration that President Obama has been dressing down people and getting a little animated. I bet he's a screamer. I'll bet you anything. He gets in those closed-door meetings, and if things aren't going his way, people are his staff. I bet President Obama is ugly behind the scenes. And here's an interesting survey. Fox did this, actually. It was a scientific survey, and they asked people, who do you trust? And between Fox News, friends and family, or the mainstream media. And it says here that 19% of the people polled believe and trust Fox News, 19%, 17% trust family and friends, and 11% trust the mainstream media. Kind of an interesting poll. This story, again, I was doing this story months ago. In fact, I may have been doing this story last year, and I told you all about how magicians who use animals in their act, they might use pigeons or rabbits, they now have to go and be registered with the state. And I believe that this particular story was out of New York. But I've seen stories like this elsewhere around the country that magicians that actually use live animals in their act have to go and file the necessary paperwork to get a permit. And that there has to be a visit by the government to the magician's house to ensure that the animals used in his act are in a safe, clean environment. It's the Magician Rabbit Regulation Act, and that these magicians now have regular visits. They actually have home visits to make sure the magicians are taking care of the rats and their doves. And this is true. The magician also has to have a disaster plan for rabbit or rabbits or birds. A disaster plan. I mean, what would be your disaster plan? I mean, you would probably have to have the necessary cages and a place to evacuate them to, safely, you probably have to have like a van, and probably have to have a padded floor walls in the van, and have straps. Make sure you strap down the rabbits and the birds so that their cages don't slide around in the van when you're leaving the disaster. But regardless, you have to have a disaster plan in New York if you're a magician for your animals. Oh, okay. You know, I've been trying to figure it out, all the nuances of this Obamacare, but I stumbled into one nuance I found really interesting. I was listening to somebody, I think this was on MSNBC or CNN, and on your 1080 form, there is going to be a new box to check. And remember now, in the ensuing year, particularly in 2014, when we do our income tax, you're going to see something new on your 1090 form or whatever form you or your tax professional fills out. There's going to be a lot of other information wanted from you, because the IRS is going to be running Obamacare, and there's going to be a new box that federal employees can check. And this will guarantee that all federal employees are going to get a subsidy from the federal government to help pay for their increased cost of Obamacare. You check that box if you're a federal employee, and you're going to get a Obamacare subsidy. Just found that out. All right, you're listening to Daniel Gray. My name, as you well know, I go by the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live from Delta, Colorado on Blog Talk Radio. This is Local Friday, and I have another poll for you. And this one, again, is a Fox poll. And, this is the one that asks whether or not, did you feel Obama knew he was lying? Now, that's an important question, because that tells you how the American people feel about the president, and this whole, if he was lying when he promised you can keep your doctor insurance plan and also get a $200 or get a $2,500 cut in your insurance premium. 59% say that Obama knew he was lying. 59%. Only 35% think that Obama wasn't lying about the health care packages and doctor and $2,500 policy cut. 59 to 35. That is a bad number. Anytime you start getting towards 60, oh my God, that's huge. All right, let's see. All right, that's it for that. Let's head back on over to Facebook. See, I had a whole bunch of really cool stories. Let's see what I got here. Oh, this is kind of funny. Here's Hill. Remember, we were talking about how interesting it was that Bill Clinton came out against President Obama, saying that he better keep his promise on health care. Well, here is Hillary Clinton, his wife, back in 2007, while she was still in the employ of President Obama, talking about health care. Give a listen here. I think you're going to be kind of surprised. I think this is Hillary Clinton's smoking gun, if you know what I mean. I mean, here she is out there carrying water for President Obama. All right, Hillary, welcome to the Trailer Park Prophet. Go ahead. We're just on pins and needles waiting to hear what you have to say about Obamacare in 2007. Take it away, Hillary. She's a little slow today.
Now, I know my Republican opponents will try to equate health care for all Americans with government-run health care. Well, don't let them fool us again. This is not government-run. There will be no democracies. You can keep the doctors you know and trust. You keep the insurance you have if you like it.
what I thought was kind of interesting there, I mean, I'm not surprised she said that about the doctors and the plans, but she also said there's going to be no new bureaucracy. And if you listen to the Trailer Park Prophet, you know that the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, creates 159 brand new federal government agencies. So either Hillary Clinton is ignorant, which I doubt, or she's just a political actor. She's just a liar. Oh, this is kind of funny. We keep doing these stories about how various government entities are sending out checks to people who are either illegal aliens or don't live in the country. And this story here, let's see, where did this come from? It came from Bankrupting America, and it says here that in 2011, $3.6 billion in potentially fraudulent tax refunds were sent to at least 1.1 million individuals. Returns were filed using fake Social Security numbers and were sent to Lithuania, Ireland, and Bulgaria. There was $228,993 worth of IRS refunds that were sent to Lithuania. Some 655 tax refunds went to a single address in Lithuania. Oh, yeah. Oh, here. Black college forced to cancel health care plans for students because of Obamacare costs. Officials at one of the nation's oldest and most elite historical black colleges are citing the Affordable Care Act as a reason for cutting back on their health insurance plans for students. USDA approves import of chicken processed in China despite safety concerns. Despite the U.S. Food and Drug Administration's repeated warnings, the latest just this October about dog food and other pet food, turkey treats made in China for pets were I can't remember, poison, something like that. And now we're going to start importing chicken from China. I got a feeling this is not going to turn out well. I mean, isn't chicken, anytime you hear something going wrong with meat, it's always chicken. Or most times it always is chicken. And so, I don't know, so this chicken's going to be coming from China. It's going to be frozen. It's going to be shipped across the ocean. Who knows? Maybe you'll be fine. As long as everything's fine. Oh, this story is getting a lot of attention. This is from Weasel Zippers. Love those guys. And is actually reported in Political, which is a liberal website. It says Obama told staff to cut down on the amount of decisions that the president has to make. Maybe we should dig into this a little bit. This is kind of an interesting story. We only have 8 minutes. And this story actually has been around for a while. And the president, like I've said before, said of himself that he is lazy. But this article is in Political. Stephen Chu is a Nobel-Prize-winning physicist, a brilliant innovator whose research fills several all but incomprehensible paragraphs of a Wikipedia entry that stands his achievements in single molecule physics, the slowing of atoms through the use of laser and the invention of something called a optical tweezer. How did I get through life without an optical tweezer? President Barack Obama even credits Chu for solving the 2010 Gulf oil spill, claiming that Chu strolled into the VP's office and was essentially designed the cap that only worked. With rare exception, Chu is the smartest guy in the room, and that includes the cabinet room, which he occupied uneasily as Secretary of Energy from 2009 to the spring of 2013. But the president's aides didn't quite see Chu that way. He might have been the only Obama administration official with a Nobel Peace Prize other than the president himself, but inside the West Wing of the White House, Chu was considered a smart guy who said lots of stupid things. A genius with an appallingly low political IQ. Clueless, as Deputy Chief of Staff Jim Messina would tell colleagues at the time. In April 2009, Chu joined Obama's entourage for one of the administration's first overseas trips to Trinidad and Tobago for a summit with the Americans focused on economic development. Chu was not scheduled to address the media, but reporters kept bugging Josh Earnest, a young staffer who sheepishly approached his boss, White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs, with the ask. No way, Gibbs told him, but the United States fell deeper into full-fledged recession. Obama diverted attention to assembling a crisis team to deal with the crumbling economy. Soon after his team was in place, he had the management epiphany every president experiences during his first weeks in power. He was drowning in data and chicken pecked by aides asking for his input. He privately grossed that to Emmanuel was overwhelming him with requests to make decisions. So he issued a standing order to Emmanuel and all future chiefs of staff. One of them told me, cut down on the number of decisions I have to make. Again, President Obama, he likes being president, but I don't think he really likes doing the job. Now, 3 minutes late. Let's see if I can find one more story to do, hopefully a fun one. At any rate, we'll be back on Monday for Sunday on Monday. Here's a George Washington quote. I really like this. This is excellent, and I'd like to share it with you. The foundation of our empire was not laid in the age of ignorance and superstition, but at an epoch when the rights of mankind were better understood and more clearly defined than any other form period. And what he's saying here is, when they wrote the Constitution, they had the experience and the history of 2,000 years of humanity. These weren't a bunch of old fuddy-duds that were Constitution. I mean, they didn't just whip this up out of nowhere. Our Constitution and the Declaration was the product of the observation of 2,000 years of government in our society.
90 seconds.
And that's just something you need to remember about President George Washington and our founding fathers. They weren't operating in a vacuum. You know, they were students of politics, students of history, and they saw what failed, saw what was successful, and they took the successful components of humanity's history and put together the constitutional republic
60 seconds.
that all of us enjoy today. All right, everybody, drizzle, drazzle, drizzle, drone. Time for this prophet to go home. We'll see you on Monday. Again, everybody, thanks a lot for being here. I appreciate it more than you could ever know. You guys are the greatest. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you Monday.